Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Synergistic CX Podcast here on the CX channel, where CX professionals converge. I'm your host, Eric Brooks, Vice President at Research Metrics, and with me today are Emil Sankov and Chris Oliveira, my other fellow members of the CX channel team. Today, we're very fortunate to also have with us an expert in customer experience, Kerli Zeiger Soosaar, CEO of Dive Group and board member of MSPA Europe and Africa. Kerli, welcome to the CX channel. Thank you for taking the time to share your experience here with our audience. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself and your work at the Dive Group?
Yeah, hi. And firstly, of course, thank you for inviting me. It's such an honor to be part of it. If to tell a bit about myself, then and my journey, then I've been actually in Dive since 2003. I started as a mystery shopper. I was on maternity leave, and I just wanted something to do. And somehow this small idea turned into a big project and a long journey. So these many years, I've worked in different positions in Dive, almost all positions possible. So I have been in operations, sales. I've led Estonian Dive. And at some point, I also led our sister company, CRRT, which is a full market research agency. So that gave me also a very good perspective of for instance, where mystery shopping actually falls in a big picture of the studies. And yeah, step by step, that journey eventually brought me to leading Dive Group as a whole. And as you mentioned, just since 2024, I'm also the proud MSPA board member. So that's my story shortly.
Well, thank you, Kerli, and I know you're joining us from the Alicante region of Spain. Today, we'll be looking at our latest CX study using ABSA methodology, that is aspect-based sentiment analysis, to decode what customers are really saying about their experiences. Over the past 2 years, we've analyzed online customer reviews across multiple different industries, from retail and hospitality to luxury and services. And each CX channel podcast episode focuses on a specific industry, moving beyond surface metrics to uncover the moments that shape the customer trust and loyalty in that specific industry. This month, we're turning our attention to the banking sector, and this is an industry where clarity and trust and consistency matter at every interaction. From the everyday transactions that customers perform to critical financial decisions, the customer experience has become a defining factor in retention and also long-term value. So together with Kerli today, we'll explore what customer feedback really reveals about banking experiences and where the expectations are being met and where friction still exists. Banking is one of those few industries where customer experience is tested not only in the everyday transactions, but in moments of high urgency and high emotional impact. Often there's a complex financial decision involved, and customers are constantly assessing trust, including the moment where they place their savings and investments into the hands of the bank. Today, those expectations are shaped by seamless digital experiences, but the confidence is actually built through reliability and clarity and consistent execution across channels. When that friction appears, the trust erodes very, very quickly. This is people's finances, after all. And when experiences work as they should, then the loyalty strengthens, of course. In this episode, we are going to explore what customer feedback reveals about banking experiences today and how CX leaders can turn insight and design into long-term customer value. So today's episode, we will cover insights from our global analysis of online customer reviews in the banking sector, examining what truly drives customer satisfaction, trust, and long-term loyalty. So here's our agenda for today. We'll start by setting the context for this episode and explaining why customer experience in banking requires a deeper evidence-based view. And we then begin with the foundations of our study. This is the sample that's analyzed, the overall ratings, and how quickly banks respond to critical customer feedback. Next, we'll look at how customers perceive key elements of the banking marketing mix and how those influence trust. And then we will map the banking customer journey, focusing on the touch points where expectations are met or broken. Then we hit our moment of truth, where we highlight the moments that most strongly impact trust, particularly when customers face issues or complex decisions. We then discuss the marketing mix funnel matrix to show how experience drivers influence customers across different stages of the relationship. Next, we'll share how to translate all of these insights into a practical starter voice of the customer survey. And following that, we'll interview our special guest, Kerli, to connect the findings to real world banking CX practices. And finally, we close with key takeaways and clear next steps for banking CX leaders. While this episode focuses on banking, the findings point to broader customer experience principles generally that apply to any industry where trust and consistency and execution excellence are critical to sustained customer relationships. So our objectives for today, we will focus on how digital influence shapes trust in banking, from reviews to app performance. We'll identify the engagement moments that matter the most and how trust is built through everyday interactions. We'll also examine the banking marketing mix and how the consistency across products, pricing, channels, and people drives confidence. We'll also highlight where both the smoothness and the friction appear in the customer journey and how to reduce customer effort. And we'll close by exploring where future growth and loyalty will come from in financial services. Later in this episode, Kerli will share with us how Dive Group uses mystery shopping and audits, as well as other customer experience research methodologies in this industry and also others to help brands maximize their CX. As always, you can explore the full industry study we're covering today by downloading this month's Synergistic CX magazine for free on our website. That's cx-channel.com. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever social media you use so that you never miss a podcast. At this point, I'll hand it over to Emil, who will walk us through the sample behind the study and what the marketing mix reveals about today's banking experiences.
Thank you, Eric. So we are starting our deep dive into the banking industry, utilizing the online reviews and ratings as initial set of metrics that we're going to dive into. So our sample represents the selection of places included in the study, and it is separated into three primary zones: the Americas, Asia Pacific, and Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. So in this particular case, our sample is relatively well balanced between the three areas, with a number of places close to 4,700 and over 42,000 reviews. This should give us a confidence level of 99.5% with a margin of error of 2.5%. So this is the sample that we are starting off with. Moving on to the star ratings, in online reviews and ratings, the star ratings are a system that allows customers to evaluate a product, service, or business on a scale typically from 1 through 5. So in the case of the banking industry, what we see here on this chart is the distribution of the star ratings across the regions. And there are two things that we need to pay particular attention to. Number one is we can see noticeable regional differences between the three regions. And this is something that we normally do not see, or at least have not seen to that extent in previous industry studies. The other particular point, or I guess interesting observation to do, is that the overall concentration is in the 1 star and 5 stars and the 2, 3, and 4 stars are relatively less represented, which shows a noticeable divergence in the two extremes. And normally what we are used to seeing in the star ratings analysis is that the 1 stars hovers on average around the 20-25%. And in this particular case, we actually see that the regional differences in the Americas and the APAC region are actually quite negative considering the 1-star rating. And this gives a global average star rating of 3.49, with Europe, Middle East, and Asia leading with a significant margin of 4.06 on average star ratings. So to conclude the star ratings picture, what we can see is that the 5-star feedback continues to represent the dominant share, more than 55% globally, with Europe, Middle East, and Asia leading with a strong average of 4.06, well above the global average of 3.49. In this context, the Americas and the APAC with 3.13 and 3.08 averages trail behind significantly, indicating a noticeable regional difference. And this is something that we rarely see in other industries.
Yeah, Kerli, there's always, one particular region that stands out a bit more than the others, but we've never seen one quite like this. As Emil mentioned, the results for Europe are noticeably higher compared to other studies we've conducted. Can you explain the duality of the 5 versus the 1 stars?
If we look at the star ratings between 5 and 1, then I think that my experience tells me that people usually give feedback when the experience is very good, so like exceptionally good, or unexpectedly bad, and then they kind of want to let off the steam, so to speak. So usually they hope that someone from the company will react then somehow. So I think that could be one of the reasons, because, for instance, when we conduct the exit interviews, we see the same trend that when the real customer exits the shop and we ask, let's say, the first question, how was it? Then the customer usually says that it was okay, and that's it. They can't bring up anything else, or they start talking when something was really good or something was really bad, right? Mm-hmm. So that might be one of the reasons. But I also think it's very important to read the results. I mean, if there are comments behind the ratings, because we have to understand a little bit better why this rating happened. And I believe that quite often this negative rating could be there could be other reasons behind it, that whether the customer's expectations were really high, unrealistically high, or the person simply had a bad day. I don't know, they were fighting with a spouse, or there was a car accident, or they were queuing somewhere really long time in another place, and it all adds up, and now it's this situation that they are putting the rating on. So I think that there is a need to go into the details and read the comments a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it makes sense that perhaps additional methodologies such as mystery shopping or audits could drill into some more of that detail and get some additional information there. In your work with banking clients, and particularly with the additional regulation that exists in the banking sector, do they typically include compliance mystery shopping as part of their research programs?
Not always, and usually not with these regular mystery shopping studies. It usually is a standalone study where we go into details. So, for instance, in a banking, we agree on the specific scenario, asking questions about the mortgage or the pensions and investments, and then the whole questionnaire is about all the steps what we have to monitor from the very beginning, how needs have been clarified, what services they offer, how they explain the offer, how they clarify the gray areas, how the interests are calculated, how they support all this information with written or online materials, and so on till the end. So that's what we do, for instance, for the banking. Or maybe another example from the pharmacy, where we go into the details that in which order they offer the certain medicines, what kind of arguments they use, and how they also argument or explain the competitors' medicines and so on. But yeah, usually it's a separate study. They don't do it in a regular basis. The main focus usually still is on the customer service experience, as general.
Excellent. Okay, we'll now step into the critical review response time, and we'll have a look at that.
All right, let's dive into that. So the critical review response time as a KPI measures how quickly a business responds to critical reviews, those with 1 or 2 stars. Clearly, this KPI is a key to customer relationship management as it reflects the business dedication to quickly address customer complaints and issues. So I just want to explain the color coding here, or the KPI bands. Green means excellent. These are critical reviews responded within 24 hours. Fair. The yellow part is, this is not visible here because these are a minuscule part of all reviews responded within 72 hours. Orange, attention, more than 72 hours. And critical, red, dark red. These are reviews that are critical reviews that are never responded to. So what we can see here is the global distribution and the regional distributions of the critical review response times. And on global level, what we can see is that nearly 2/3 of the customer reviews or customer complaints go unanswered. However, when we dive into the regional breakdown, we see a significant difference. And the significant difference is especially pronounced when we compare the Europe, Middle East, and Asia compared to APAC. So Europe, Middle East, and Asia, nearly half of the critical reviews are actually answered within 24 hours. And a decent part are answered in more than 72 hours, which leaves around 46% of the critical reviews unanswered. This seems like a big percentage. However, compared to the other industries that we have surveyed, this is actually a great performance because we are used to seeing critical reviews going unanswered in the magnitude of 70-80%. So this is actually great performance. America trails behind, but not by a great margin. However, when we look at the APAC picture, we see that more than 90% of the critical reviews actually stay unanswered. And this is worse compared to the averages that we have seen when we dive into the critical review responses across different industries. So to summarize, Europe obviously performs the best, showing more balanced response patterns, while the APAC records the weakest engagement, and it is a critically weak engagement. So let's take that KPI from a different angle, reviews with comments and reviews with ratings only. As it is normal to assume, the reviews with comments get more responses simply because there is something to respond to. And with this, actually, let's see the regional distribution. And what we can see is that the regional distribution of reviews with comments is very similar to the overall distribution that we just commented on a couple of minutes ago. So to summarize, what we're seeing is that globally only around 1/3 of the comment back complaints are addressed, which is good in terms of KPI compared to the other industries that we have surveyed, but still shows a great opportunity for improvement. And what is, I guess, the most important observation here is a significant deviation across the regions, with Europe, Middle East, and Asia leading, and APAC trailing significantly behind, with over 90% of the critical reviews staying unanswered. All right, so with all that being said, let's do a deep dive, and we're going to dive into the marketing mix and the customer journey. So just to explain how the marketing mix and the customer journey reports and the analysis is being built, we take the comments from the online reviews and ratings and perform what we call aspect-based sentiment analysis, which means that we take all the different aspects from all the reviews, and the aspects are the various topics that the customers are talking about. And based on the sentiment around the aspect, we assign a sentiment score. And then we take that and associate the various aspects with the elements of the marketing mix in this case, and the customer journey and what is going to follow. And considering the sentiment, we built the reports that you're going to see in the next couple of minutes. So diving into the marketing mix elements. So this is intended to answer the question, what do customers talk about, or what do customers care about? So as you can see, we use a 7P marketing mix, which is an extension of the standard 4P traditional concept, which is product, place, price, promotion. Here we extend that with process, people, and physical evidence. The first observation that we can take from this specific chart is that customer feedback reveals that people account in the banking sector for more than 50%, more than 54% to be more specific, of all mentions, confirming the central role of the human interaction. And together with process and place, these three elements of the marketing mix represent nearly 90% of the totality of the customer feedback.
Kerli, with respect to this particular industry, in an industry like this that's highly automated, I mean, 99% of my interaction with my bank is all done over websites and mobile apps. So there's a ton of automation. It's really striking that, as Emil mentioned, over half of the customer mentions in reviews still relate to people. With most of the daily banking interaction handled as I described through the technology, customers seem to still really expect something very different and very personal when they actually do need to talk to someone. And my question is, from the customer experience perspective, why do you think it's so difficult for banks to design service models that deliver personalized human experiences while they're still operating within those strict regulatory and compliance frameworks we talked about earlier.
Well, like you said, the banking is highly regulated, right? But what the customers, what we want, I as well, is that I want personality. I want tailored solutions. I want to be noticed, and I want that my personal unique differences to be considered. But here might lie the gap because the frontliners are usually not authorized to make such kind of exceptions in the banking. And because they have been given very strict instructions, what rules they have to follow. And I think that that this is a main aspect here. That it's just very hard to live up the needs or expectations of the real customers.
It's interesting you mentioned that because there was a similar observation made in a completely different industry on a previous CX channel podcast, which was the rental car industry. And it was the same type of concept where there was a set of procedures and there was a lot of automation, but the staff, when those moments with customers matter, the staff was simply not empowered to be able to tailor the solution or customize a solution to the problem or the issue.
Exactly. And this is also a very interesting example because when I have been renting a car, I have also kind of faced some kind of similar sayings that I can't do it, it's not allowed, I can't change the car type or something. But why? I mean, there should be more trust on the frontliners. Like, I mean, of course, there has to be rules. At certain level, they can kind of be flexible, but I think that there could be more from the customer perspective.
I think this is a trend that we might see continuously across the customer experience management or measurement industry as more and more automation takes place and more AI is integrated into services. I think we're going to see that being a key differentiator, the actual ability to solve those specific problems that are the exceptions. That's where things really shine. And that's what gets customers talking, is when they have a crazy situation and it does get resolved amicably. So I think it's interesting that we see this here in the banking sector too, because I think we're going to start seeing that trend in other industries as well. And I think it might increase. So this is a very interesting point in the customer experience side of things.
Well, let's see what the data actually shows. And so here we're going to dive one level deeper into the marketing mix elements, and we're going to drill down into the features. And this now quite busy pie chart represents what details do customers prioritize. And what we can see, and to make things easier to digest, there is a table on the right hand side of this slide. But what we see here is when we dive deeper and drill into the people and the process, which represents the vast majority of which details do customers prioritize, we see that the staff attitude is a clear winner, if I may say so. But it's a clear topic that customers prioritize, with more than 35% of the conversations centering around the staff attitude. Then the next two are process related, and these are the clients related to client service protocols and transaction processing efficiency, with over 10% and over 7% respectively. So these are the second and the third topic detail that customers prioritize. And the last two, the important, or the top five details, are, we're still again getting back to people and staff expertise and availability. together representing about 10% of the details that customers prioritize. But still, staff attitude seems to be the clear leader with regards to what the customers talk about, being more than 35% of all conversations. The second topic, client service protocols, a little bit over 10%. So these emerge as the strongest trends, and we did talk about regulation, but the data shows that the human connection and the process efficiency seem to be the highest on the customer's mind based on what is discussed in the online reviews and ratings.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Emil. Based on my experience, what stands out here is that customers have a very thin differentiation between what staff does not want to do and what they cannot do because of regulation. In the end of the day, everything that's related to banks is about money, right? Every decision they have to make can impact money. And for customers, it's very difficult to make this differentiation between what staff does not want to do and what they cannot do. And that is why we have this impact on 35% in terms of staff attitude. This team differentiation can make a lot of difference in terms of customer experience expectations.
Well, clearly, it seems like we need to, as far as this chart is concerned and this metric is concerned, it seems like our analysis will benefit if we actually go a step further and explore what drives the attitude score, because it is a big chunk. It is 35% of all companies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this will be a takeaway and a homework, if you will, that we'll do this extra step when we put together the magazine. Next on, we're going to focus on the marketing mix experiences, and what this chart is intended to help us understand the customer sentiments, thoughts, and feelings in relationship to the marketing mix elements. So and let me explain the color coding here. The green excellent is any sentiment above 0.5 points, and red critical is any sentiment lower than minus 0.5. And we can see that the red and the green sentiment are predominant in this chart, with very little in the fair in the attention area. So looking at the customer sentiment across the 7 marketing mix elements, we can see that visually between the green and the red, the sentiment is almost equally distributed between the excellent and the critical. But when we look at the critical experiences alone, we can see that the vast majority of those are concentrated in the people, process, and place elements of the marketing mix, for a total of 44.6% of the total feedback altogether. So what does it mean? This means that there is a lot of opportunities for improvement, and focus needs to be placed in these 3 marketing mix elements. And we are going to uncover more with regards to next steps in the next part of the podcast, when we get to the journey and to the voice of the customer surveys.
There's an additional piece here that's actually rather interesting, which is the smallest slice, where we see that pricing, and it's the least frequently mentioned part of the marketing mix, but pricing represents a relatively small share of the overall feedback, yet it has nearly 75% negative mentions. So you can see that the slice is almost entirely red. And we've seen other industries that have customers reacting very differently to prices that they choose to pay versus costs that they feel forced to pay. Kerli, how does this dynamic play out in banking? And in your opinion, what does it mean for how banks should think about their fees and their transparency and perhaps perceived value?
Mhm. Well, according to studies I just read some time ago, and when I was reviewing these results, I remembered it. There tends to be a trend and the perception that the bank fees are high, especially for simple things like keeping the account active or simple transaction fees, as people feel that not much has to be done for that. And to add here another layer, that there are more and more alternatives like Wise or Revolut, for instance, which have entered to the market strongly by offering significantly lower fees. So obviously customers compare, right? And then we end up in a situation where customers have the strong expectation for these aspects to change also in these old-fashioned, so to call banks, because buying nice shoes can be like an emotional purchase, and you make that decision by yourself. Or if you're booking a hotel in like a five-star hotel for your vacation, it feels like you treat yourself, and again you make this choice. But bank fees, they may feel like you are forced to pay. I mean, you are basically, right? And I think that people don't like being to put into the situation where they feel that they don't have a choice. Don't you think so?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and there is another thing, Eric, that is very interesting from the sociological point of view, is we have seen in many markets this kind of research, where in times of social unrest, customers, they tend to penalize banks more for charging fees. We have seen this in North America now, we have seen this in Portugal, in Greece, in Italy, in countries that are under war as well, that normally we see that banks, they have higher profits, and somehow the customers, they tend to penalize more and be less lenient towards fees, because in somehow they pay more taxes and they have more struggle paying their bills, and they tend to have less patience and be less tolerant towards those fees.
Mm-hmm. That's good insight. Thank you very much for that.
All right, so let's wrap this up with a couple of key takeaways. So first and foremost, a key takeaway for the bank industry is the need to strengthen the service recovery. As we could see, close to 65% of all critical reviews go unanswered, revealing a service recovery potential. The second key takeaway is the need to put the people at the center and focus on the people, as they drive 54% of all customer feedback, led by attitude and expertise. The third key takeaway is the need to fix the process friction. Process is highlighted as the second most pressure tested of the marketing mix elements in the banking journey. And lastly, as we could see, there is a need to reinforce the banking experiences. Customers highlight negative experiences with 44.6% of all feedback being critical and concentrated in people, process, and place.
Thank you, Emil. This is the end of part one of our three-part episode here on the Synergistic CX Podcast. In the next segment, we'll explore more details of our bank industry study and discuss the customer journey map and the key touchpoints that drive loyalty of customers. Remember that you can always find the full details of our studies for free on our website, cx-channel.com. And you can always follow the CX channel on LinkedIn, YouTube, or your favorite social media platform. Be sure to press that subscribe button and ring that bell so you don't miss our next episode.